Meeting of the Student Services Committee of the Waukesha Board of Education to order. First up, under general business, is verification meeting is properly posted. Michelle?
Yes, it was.
Awesome. Next up is opportunity for public comment. Do we have anybody that wants to address the committee? No? Okay, moving on to our action items. We have one action item this evening, and it's to approve the minutes. Looking for a motion?
So moved.
Excellent. Give that to Mr. Wad. And a second?
Second.
Excellent. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain. Abstain
Okay,
from last.
that's going to be 401. Alrighty, next up, under discussion information items is policy 8420, school safety.
Good evening. Tonight, we have on our discussion information items policy 8420, school safety. This policy is coming forward from a revisions in Neola. While we can have conversation, I want to be upfront that it cross-references a few other policies that I may have made a mistake and haven't gone to the policy committee yet. So there's a few revisions here, but likely we would come back to this Student Services Committee around this policy. Some of the changes really are around the records retention and looking for that alignment. The policy that cross-references 8310, which is public records. And so since that hasn't been discussed at the policy committee, unfortunately, I put it on here a little premature, so I apologize for that.
Okay, any questions on the,
Well, maybe just,
we
if
can
I
still have
might-
discussion about
Yeah,
it.
free.
Yeah.
So we will get to that 8310. We already have an 8310.
Right.
We'll make some updates to 8310 at the, or recommend some updates that Neola has in the April meeting cycle. So then this policy could come back to student services in May,
For action.
assuming that that all
Yeah,
flows.
for action.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. Are there any questions or anybody? The questions may be moot because if that policy changes or something, but we can discuss it. Anything? Anybody? Nope, okay. Nothing on that one.
Apologies.
All righty, moving on is school safety update. Okay,
All right,
welcome.
welcome.
Thanks for
Hi.
taking the time to meet with us.
So as you know, we had school safety, the policy 8420, just ahead of this. But in general, as a school district, we have a safety plan. As you know, we have a district team that comes around that plan. These gentlemen here, Chad and Kyle, are instrumental in the work that we do around our safety pieces. Tonight, what we wanted to do was to provide a little bit of an update around the work we're doing behind the scenes. Sorry. Present. We wanted to share a little bit of an update, what we're doing behind the scenes. Oftentimes, when we talk about school safety, we do that in closed session just because of the safety of everyone. But we felt it was a good opportunity tonight to just give an update on some of the work that we're doing, not specifically to the safety plans, if that makes sense. So tonight, what I wanted to do is really just publicly thank Chad and Kyle for their dedication. They're instrumental. Chad is the maintenance manager and Kyle is the custodial manager. They are instrumental in the work that we do. They are part of our district team meetings that we have on a regular basis. One of the things that we've done with a change in staff at district office is really reestablish our district team. Between those two, myself, Darren, and Steve Sloman, and just really review all the policies, much like 8420 or anything else, because as you know, in each policy, there are specific things to do, whether it's annually or monthly. And so together as a team, we just went through those to ensure that we have a plan for every step and every action. And then we also aligned our meeting structure to align with some of those timelines. And then there's a few other things we wanted to give an update, but I'll turn it over to them to talk specifically about the other pieces we've been working on this year.
So just a little bit of what we've been working on. We recently met with the principals, secretaries, and custodians. The goal of that was to strengthen ties with the school stakeholders. We updated staff on specific safety measures being implemented, informed of any changes with the physical building that tie into safety and security, and then to foster a collaborative approach to school safety. So it's kind of bringing everybody together, everybody on the same page. And we thought it would be beneficial to have secretaries, custodians involved in that.
I would add too that that's been a new piece, so we have a principal touch base that's online. And as we were planning, we oftentimes had like just separated conversations and not getting the same people in the same room. And so that's where we together looked at that time and thought, hey, how can we plan ahead and just have principals, they're already scheduled to be online for that, hour. And so we prioritize, business department, human resources, safety and technology for those meetings. So we've gotten great feedback on the use of that time to get all different stakeholders in the same room, and then they can be together to have that conversation. So that's been really a positive new thing this year.
Yeah. So another, I would say one of the biggest things that we've been trying to establish and get back out there, which the district does a really good job and the schools do a good job anyways, it's the I Love You Guys protocol, and that's a standard response procedure. And it's been updated in 2023, so that's all been issued to the schools. And that's kind of what, if a lockdown, lockout, if that's what we use, and that's what the schools go off, and that's called I Love You Guys, and that's, it's based off of a lot of information from other incidents and stuff, and it seems to be working really good for us. One of the other we've been working on is the audit go bags. So if we have an issue, what's in those bags? Are they ready to go? So we've been conducting an audit just based on different medical needs. We also have the tourniquets. Yep. So they have tourniquets in there now. So every classroom should have one.
I think the biggest thing that we're looking for that is, a lot of these schools have great ideas what to put in those go bags, but it's not standardized across the district. At one point it was, but just coming up with new ideas and flashlights, glow sticks, all kinds of things. We're just trying to see what everyone has, get a list together and try to get it standard across the district. Just touching base on evacuation sites, looking to enhance the evacuation site communication and coordination. They've been updated. The principals are currently looking at their sites and connecting with those stakeholders, those partners, getting updated contact information, hopefully going out to the sites, looking at the space in case there was an emergency, they know what they're walking into. And then also kind of updating and getting a secondary site, third site, just in case there's something that they can't handle. So, also, we're going to be reviewing annual training via Vector, meeting with Human Resources on that. We pushed this out probably a year ago or two to district-wide safety training. Actually, Vector is training for pretty much everything. We'll be reviewing annual training contact, just with relevance and effectiveness. Plan to discuss improvements and what else to add into those trainings with Human Resources. Accessibility to safety plans. Reviewing distribution methods of our safety plan to enhance accessibility. We're exploring digital solutions for ease. Our emergency big red binder, if you guys are familiar with these at each sites, we're working with Steve Schloman to get kind of a version just in case we don't grab that on time. We'll have a digital version outside the schools at our evacuation sites. So we're currently exploring those options. Moving forward, just looking to continue to refine our strategies to safety. And our goal is not to react to current safety standards, but also anticipate future needs and challenges. We welcome any questions that you guys have.
Any questions? Diane?
I don't have a question, but I do want to compliment you and celebrate that Monday's day to recognize our custodial staff and maintenance staff that does an amazing job for the school district of Waukesha.
Thank you, Diane.
Any other questions? Mrs. Zenobia?
Yeah, on the, just an overview, I know you mentioned training and response and stuff. Has all the district staff been given all the training at this point? Are we still getting through that? Are there any pieces to that that are, I know things are changing with our security overall, so as that all comes online, you know, I don't know if there's additional training or new training, or maybe expand on that just a little bit of.
Sure, we've made a lot of physical changes to buildings that create change that we need to get to these people, or all the staff members, on how to operate during an emergency situation. That's when we take our time during these all-admin meetings to kind of update on what we've done. A lot of the things that we've incorporated are just visuals for everyone. So in regards to the online training, like I said, it's not just used for safety, it's used for many other aspects. And Human Resources currently takes that over.
Okay.
With the enhanced security piece, as they implement things, the training is with the site as things are established. The team goes to them. So I'm not sure which part of the training you were asking about, but we have annual trainings that are in Vector that go out every year by a certain date. They have to be done. That's monitored by Human Resources. And then we have a training piece where these guys are working with all admin and funneling that out. And then as we bring on the other software system called Verkada, the training is more school-based. Once that school has all the data and all the technology pieces set up, so that it's more on demand when they're ready for it.
Yeah, my question is more from a facility standpoint of each school, and how it's felt that each place is up to speed and getting the right training, and obviously they're getting it, but kind of what your sense of is.
I
Are
would,
there any holes in that, or are things lagging, or is everything pretty much happening all at once?
no, I think, like I said, that I Love You Guys, the SRP was updated in 2023, so a lot of the terminology changed. It's more of, you know, we're having a drill today, this is what we need to do. It doesn't have to be the surprise, you know, we're not gaining anything by that. So a lot of the terminology, a lot of the way that we're doing the drills, and they do them on a monthly basis. We actually have I've been in Mr. Bennett's school a couple times, and, you know, if you ever want to see a lockdown and how that works and everything else and how it's supposed to work, Les Paul's the school. But on a monthly basis, those drills, it's phenomenal. You know, we come a long way, and then just using that SRP, it keeps everybody kind of on the same page, because Waukesha is different, that we don't use Alice, we don't use some of these other trainings. What we have is based on what Waukesha Police, the Sheriff's Department, you know, what we come up with. And then for the terminology and, you know, signs, different like that, we use that universal SRP from I Love You Guys.
Okay.
So it's pretty amazing.
Good. Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. King?
I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the unification times that you guys have incorporated. I think that's a phenomenal idea. We're a big district, but yet when you bring all the heads together, that helps that unification, like you said, kind of puts everybody on the same page. Things are consistent, cohesive, people know what to expect across the district. So I would think that's a great idea. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, we definitely are too. It hasn't always been that way, but, you know, it's the stakeholders. They go to the custodian, hey, what's going on? And a lot of times we have direct contact with them. So sometimes they're the first, you know, hey, this is what's going on. We just got this. What's going on in the school? So it's nice to have everybody together in that group, so.
Any other questions? How is the Vector training going? I'm Vector trained. I do it every year. So I'm aware of it. I do the Alice training as well, and the CPI and all that stuff. So what's the reception on the Vector training? It's long.
It is.
It's very
It is.
intense. It's-
But what I find is that on that vector, we find people taking classes going above and beyond.
Yep, because they have that
and
whole
that's
library,
standard.
yep.
So, we have custodians, we have new aides coming on that, they get in there and they could do the mandatory training,
Right.
but then we find that they're, oh, let me check
Yeah.
this one, let me do this one.
Okay.
So it's
Good.
a great resource.
Yeah, it's
and
fantastic.
You can keep going,
Yep.
So,
Okay, awesome. Do we use the Safe Schools? Do we use that?
it's kind of the same, safe
Yeah,
vector.
we do Safe Schools and I do Vector, so
Yep.
I do, but, okay, awesome, excellent. Is there anything else? One other question I have, and it was a talk years ago about voting places. Do we have any polling places in the schools anymore? I know that was a huge safety concern years ago, and we tried to move them out.
So I think it's been a couple years without it. It's tough, like, when I worked at Waukesha South, it was
Yep.
difficult,
Yeah,
just to keep that separation, and
yeah, for
we'd
sure.
have a basketball game going on with the voting,
Right.
and voting has the rules, and,
Yeah, But-
we made it work when we
Yeah.
had to, but it's nice that we don't have to.
right, you don't have to
work
deal with
around
that anymore.
Yeah.
Excellent, okay. Alrighty, any other questions for these gentlemen? No? Fantastic. Thanks for taking the time to come and talk to us about
for having
this. It's
us.
important. It's important work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alrighty, next up on discussion information is Student Hope Engagement and Wellness Survey. This also sounds like a lot of work, a lot of important work.
Yeah.
In relation to our
there's a lot of
students.
important work and a lot of different departments.
Yeah,
going
right.
on.
Yep.
There's no doubt in that.
Student Services.
Yep. Thank you, guys. So our next discussion information item is around the Student Hope Engagement and Wellness Survey. And just give you a little bit of background, the school district has used this survey since 2018. It's really based off of the Gallup research around education. So I'll share a little bit about that tonight. One of the reasons I'm bringing forward this information tonight is because it is directly aligned with our key performance indicators. Last year for teaching and learning, once we had the key performance indicators, we had a regular report out once we had that data. And so I wanted to bring this forward this year for the first time, just in the same fashion of bringing forward the information. I have with me tonight Mr. Bennett, who is the principal of Les Paul, and I'll share the survey results, and then he's going to share a little bit more about not only how we have aligned from our district in using the survey to the school level, but also how at the school level they use the information on a regular basis. It's different at each school, but as we had meetings with principals and everyone was talking about their information and strategic actions, I looked at Rob and said, hey, do you want to be my partner? So it's a great testament of the work being done. There's lots of great things throughout the district, but I think that was a highlight, so I just want to highlight some of that work tonight. All right, so that's a little bit about the background and the purpose. Like I had shared, the survey itself is based on the work of Gallup. They've been providing expertise and tools to school districts for, I think, over 40 years. As we deploy the survey, it is done in Qualtrics within our own system. We don't use Gallup like you do with some of the Strength Finder pieces. Tonight, I wanted to share a little bit more about the survey itself, but then also give a little overview of the survey, and then talk about the most recent administration of the survey, and we'll get into the 3 areas. I wanted to share, before I go on, I wanted to share just a little bit of research from Gallup and really how this came to be. So Gallup shares that the Gallup student poll provides students with a forum to express their opportunities and challenges in their daily lives. Research has shown that hope, engagement, and well-being are positioned as an actionable target and indicators of success with links to grades, achievement scores, retention, and future employment. So that's a little bit of background and linkage to the why behind the survey. And like I said, we've been doing it in the school district since 2018. So I'm going to just summarize our most recent results. Before I do, I want to just outline the survey for you. Like the title says, there are 3 areas: hope, wellness, and engagement. There are questions or statements in each area, either 9 or 11, and I have those exact statements to share tonight. The student responses, and students in our district take it second grade on up. Throughout the years, the administration of the survey has been different. And sometimes we did it twice a year as a district. Sometimes we did it once a year as a district, but then schools had the flexibility to use it as needed. But I'm just, again, going to share the most recent information when we did it district-wide. When the students do complete the assessment, the response options that they have range from strongly disagree to strongly agree. So that's a little foundational piece around the survey itself. In the area of hope, we have 9 questions. These are the questions or statements that the students would see. They range from the teacher believes I can learn to I am recognized for my efforts, all the way to question 9, which is I have a positive future ahead of me. So all questions are clustered for the total rating based on the rating of strongly disagree to strongly agree. So if a child were to respond to the majority of these questions in the area of hope as strongly agree, then they would come out at their cluster score would be strongly agree. And that's what we're going to report out on tonight. So it's really, really big data of all of our students, not all, second grade on up, big picture and cluster scores. In the area of hope, when we look at the big data, the students, 89% agree or strongly agree with their statements in the area of hope. Same thing for wellness. We have 9 questions here, or statements, ranging from, at school, we have procedures that make me feel safe, kind of going back to that safety piece. At school, I'm respected by other students. Students respect others who are different. I feel I am successful at school. And you can see the other statements that are then there for the students to then rate themselves as strongly disagree to all the way to strongly agree. Again, as the student completes the responses for each one of these, they get an overall cluster score, and if they have many of the responses are strongly agree or agree, that puts them in that cluster area. So for the area of wellness, again, when we look at the students in the most recent administration, 85% of our students strongly agree with their clusters. That's where they're coming out at with the wellness cluster, so 85%. In the area of engagement, we have 11 questions. Everything including my teachers believe I can work, to teachers believe I can be successful. I put forth effort in the majority of my classes. And again, we come up with that cluster rating, and we're looking for kids to have a cluster rating in the strongly agree or agree to be a positive response. And we have 81% of our students having a strongly agree or agree cluster rating in the area of engagement. As I shared earlier, one of the reasons I wanted to bring the information forward is because one of our key performance indicators is focused on one of the questions in the survey. And so the question is, let me go back. The students, it's in the area of wellness. Students respect others who are different. So here we had a goal to increase above 64% to 85% in 2 years. You can see our ratings remain around 66%, 65, up to 69, and then 66%. We have had conversation at the with all building administrators regarding these results for this one question. And you'll hear a little bit more in Rob's story of just looking at more questions for a bigger picture. As far as the key performance indicator, we're not there yet, but it has caused us to have conversation around looking at multiple questions rather than just one. So we'll continue to monitor this, but right now we do have, each building has strategic actions at their school level around their results. That's what I wanted to speak to.
Are there other questions in the survey already that you could look to, or would be adding different questions to the survey?
It's looking at other surveys that are, or other questions that are already in the
Already in
survey.
the survey.
And that's, Rob has an example to share of it, to say like, that question has historically been the lowest one, and I believe that is why that was chosen as a KPI between the previous administration and approved with the Student Services Committee. So obviously, we're always want to continuously improve, but it's caused us now to look at our results over time, and we've wondered if there's some wording that is coming into play, because we're getting much higher results for on a few different questions. And we've just had some conversation around it. There's a lot of questions in the survey, and we're just focusing on that one as far as the KPI, which it's okay, but we're just trying to look at the whole picture. And that's what Rob will kind of go into detail about.
Can you break that question down for grade level satisfaction?
You can. The schools have dashboards that they break this all down by their school and by agree, disagree. Rob can probably speak to that, because,
That's for all the grades, 60,
yeah,
some are better in certain grades.
absolutely. But you can see why it was chosen. It is much lower than the other ones. As you know, we have the key performance indicators, which have been approved. What we did this past summer is our administrative team looked at our school continuous improvement plans, and we wanted to ensure that we had a focus on teaching and learning, but also student engagement. And as we added that student engagement piece to the continuous improvement plans at the school level, we talked about what data would people use to drive their strategic actions. And this is one where, Mr. Bennett came out and said, well, this is already what I'm doing. This is how we use the data. But the idea of having the KPI at the district level and then each school having student engagement goals and strategic actions, having that alignment helps us to really address whether it's that one question or a cluster of questions, but even think strategically around continuous improvement and what do we want to do with student engagement. So we have the alignment. I kind of queued it up for Rob. We have the area and the continuous improvement plan, but really he's the star of the show can speak to how he's been using this and results at Les Paul.
All right, well, thanks for having me, and thanks for being here. With the Hope Engagement Wellness Survey, we at our building utilize it 3 times a year. We do it fall, winter, and spring. Winter, we strategically do it actually between the holidays. So it's a time that could be really challenging and difficult, or very positive for some, but trying to get a really broad area of students. We strive in our plans to have over 95% of the students participate in the survey on that given day. So this last time we were over 545 of our 590 students took the survey. When the students log into the survey, other students don't see what question they're on. They're screened, so done electronically. We're able to break down, Mr. McAfee asked by grade level, by male, female, by ethnicity. So there are multiple ways to factor that down, and that's one of the pieces our SAIL team, who's listed up there, our school improvement team, has really looked to try to break this down further to be able to respond and be either reactive if necessary, but also proactive in the long run. We've had some good results in some areas, but it's also gleaned some areas that we really want to work on. A big effort that we've done in our engagement with our school is taking student feedback and our SAIL team's feedback of how can we increase that. So in our 100-day planning cycles, we've done things along the way of our cardinal way, our behavior positive behavior incentive, and what does that look like? What does student engagement look like beyond just the classroom? Activities, connections with UW-Madison outreach, after-school activities and clubs. What is drawing students to school? And what is making that experience there the best it can be? We speak a lot in our building about collective efficacy and the willingness of our teachers to believe in our students. And on the screen in front of you are some of the breakdowns of some specific questions. On the top are some of the questions that I'm extremely proud of, and our staff. I'm extremely proud of the staff, of what they've been able to accomplish and the rapport and relationship they've been able to build. When students respond at a 97% rate that they believe, their teachers believe in them to learn, that's huge in my eyes. Believe learning is important, over 90%. My culture is accepted and appreciated. The adults at this school care about me. I know that my teachers believe I can go to college. Those are some things to definitely celebrate. And I think when students are responding to this survey, talking about the adults who they're with each and every day, that is huge. And the work that the staff have done to be able to do that, and how do they do that? Sometimes this might be seen as something really simple. Being in the hallway, being in the lunchroom, being at the door greeting kids when they come in, being at their music events, being at after-school homework club. We have 70 students who have accessed homework club. We have 26 kids in an emerging leaders group. We have student assistance groups for students who are having a difficult time so that they can connect with someone in student services that they trust and respect. On the bottom are areas we want to grow. I recognize for hard work, 81%. In the last 7 days, I've received recognition and praise, 76%. I'm respected by other students, 82%. We've actually, Mr. Carabon, my assistant principal, and myself, we've met with different grade level teams and spoke to the kids about results. And we spoke to them about, you've said great things about the teachers and adults, but how about your classmates? And what can we do in turn to increase that piece in getting student feedback with student council? What could they do to give other ideas and opportunities for kids to be more cohesive and collective? That is some work we've really are striving for. One of the things we brought up in our school improvement team is, if I asked all of you recognition and praise, could you say you've received it? And for each of us, recognition and praise might mean something completely different. So that was something to get some student feedback. What does it mean to be recognized? What does it mean for praise? And that's some of the work that we're putting forth in the spring here. We've done things in our, if you've been in our building, our cafeteria, the screens, to be able to recognize students for their hard work, the things they've done, student artwork in the hallways, recognizing our students of the month. And students are the month aren't just about academics. It's about a positive role model, leadership, doing the right thing. So we have talked about that. We've just recently gone through Cardinal Way reviews, which is we bring each grade level in smaller groups and talk about expectations, what they can do to be successful, what they can do to lift each other up. And really we've talked about, when it's talked about respecting other students, I've made it simple, 2 words, be nice. And if we could all just do that, some of those numbers would increase. Something I'm extremely proud of, we have some group of students who may have had a difficult time, and when you break that down to some of those areas, very granularly, our wellness results have increased in the winter. Small, by 0.03 or 0.02, but as a composite score, those are all above 3. And we've looked at trying to have everything above that 3. You know, kids are agreeing to the positive things. Kids are seeing the benefit of a trusted adult, learning being important. But it's also been work on our part. What can we do to recognize students more? At one of our previous learning sessions, we didn't have a building staff community builder. The community builder was 10 minutes on the phone to a family to talk about a positive thing their child did. That was the community builder, because isn't that our community? They came back then, and that's where our learning took place after that. Sometimes it's staff input to what can be done differently. A pie in a teacher's face. You know, it's 100 tickets, and when it comes to that, for me, it's 1 million, I tell them. But, you know, different things like that. But I think it's also those little things when you're saying hello and you're not settling for a student not to respond, and you're having those conversations, and you're sitting with them in lunchroom. Mr. Carabon and myself, 90 minutes of the most important part of the day is the lunchroom, and that's where we are. You see who's getting along, who's not getting along, who can be recognized for something, who can see their face on the screen and the glow on their face when that slide deck is put together. Those are the things that we're really striving to work on, and in turn, academics come with it. If kids are talking about they can go to college, they believe the work is important, they believe a teacher believes in them, that's the hard work. And it's continuing to build on that and that student input with that. So, and it's taking time to just ask kids, what do you need? What does it mean to be recognized? Some kids don't know how to accept recognition, or there's pressure with recognition. So how do you do that strategically and compassionately to lift everybody up?
Mr. Bennett, can you share a little bit about the admin conversation around the specific question and then how other data results can lead us to confusing, just conversations? It really, he can summarize it better, but we kind of felt a little stumped as we looked at our results for that one specific question, but then other questions, there was higher results, so.
So when it talks about some of the wellness questions about being respected by other students, there are other pieces that go into, I feel my culture is accepted. I have at least one friend at school, the trusted adult I can rely upon. Those things, sometimes our kids, especially in middle school, get so stuck in just that small population. And what does it mean beyond that piece? Having that smiling and laughing most days, feeling successful, respecting others who are different. We have students who've come together from multiple elementary schools who have been together for a long, long time and now have come into a larger community and are learning new students with specific needs, different walks of life. And rather than making judgment, getting to know students and who are they. We have implemented advisory at the middle school level, and during that time, a lot of time is spent in community building for students to be able to share who they are, what they like to do, those types of things. So students get to understand people beyond their gymnastics team, beyond their choir group, their band group. Students who they sit with at the lunch table. If you come into a middle school lunchroom, you know they're creatures of habit, but you also know too throughout courses of the year, teams change, dynamics change, and having kids be with other students and to be able to lift them up. Seeing students who've had, asking questions about different things is a sign of respect and not making a judgment about what's going on. Being able to use some of the other questions and having conversations in advisory with students or in grade levels. What does it mean to be respectful, and how do you show that respect? In working in our cardinal way, what does that mean? And those are things that happen daily in the lunchroom or during that advisory period. Saying hello and recognizing that you say hello back and in those types of things. I think students, that's a level of respect. Students will also say, I respect others who respect me. What does that mean? And what does that look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? So really trying to work with the students, especially 11, 12, 13 years old, who are trying to figure out who they are and what does respect mean. That's daily work that sometimes isn't so scripted, but is responsive to be able to meet those needs.
Any questions? Mr. Zenobia?
So just a couple of things. When the students take the survey, are we pretty confident that they're answering all the questions, or do we know that, or?
Yeah, the data will bring out how many students have answered each and every question, and students need to finish all of them. They're given a ample amount of time to go through it.
Okay.
If a student is in the midst of that survey and is feeling not comfortable to be able to do it, it is to them, it's not to anyone else. So that the system will see Mr. Zenobia answered the first 6 questions in wellness. is going to come back to it later. You're not going to go over those 6 questions again. You'll start at wellness number 7 and
Gotcha.
wellness number 8.
So overall, since, we saw the 4 years on the specific KPI question, but, overall, since we've been doing the survey, it looks like 2018, how has it been fairly level? Has there been improvement? Was COVID the down years? Or how, big picture, how has this data kind of helped us see where things are at overall? I know it's a big, broad question.
But it is. It's having kids be with other kids again in some of what we could say is normal, if we can say that, especially in middle school. But having those social graces and giving others grace for difference. Our building is a little bit higher than that norm right now. We've been around in the low 70s to low 80s along the way. But I really think it's some of that work about what is expected and what is supported so those expectations can be met. We had a student last year who would always say, and it has stuck with me, if someone was not being respectful to someone else, would just look and say, we just don't do that here. And when a student can say that, that speaks volumes. But I do think it is taking time to repeatedly go over the expectations. And what does that mean? Because we can assume they understand, but that assumption many times will not be accurate. So it takes 30 seconds every lunch period. Hey, everyone, here's our routine for today. Here's what you do. If you need something, come up and see us. 90 seconds out of 1,400 minutes a day, let's use them well.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Koenig?
Mr. Bennett, I just love the climate you created there and the intentional, language you use, and I can't wait to get in there and walk around and just feel the vibe there. Tell me a little bit about what you've noticed with regard to behavior at Les Paul over the last, few years, since you have really been intentionally working through this and incorporating this into the daily life of Les Paul. When it comes to behavior, what have you noticed?
I'll be 100% honest and transparent. We could probably write up some more things than we do because our teachers want to take care of it and do things really well. But our behavior, large scale things has decreased. One of the things we do look at the end of January, we were sitting at 488 referrals. Our highest was in our 8th grade, which is also our highest student population. We are addressing that piece, which is inappropriate comment, which ties right into respect, and being able to address those. With our behavior data too, we look at who are our high flyers and what can we do to address the needs of those individual students through our student services team. So who are our top 10? And do we have a plan for each one of those top 10? And what does that plan look like? One of the things is the risk ratio too of different subgroups. And as our trying to get to that goal of 4.1, which we're currently at a risk ratio of 5.1 within the district. If you remove one student from each of our grade levels, we're at 2.94. So we need to intensively support those top high flyers. We look at too, what are some of the behaviors that are occurring, inappropriate language or repeated refusal to do something as simple as being to class on time. But it's continuing to work through those efforts and to have those things lifted to an expectation. But it's also a piece that Mr. Carabon, myself, our student services team, are those personal conversations with the student so that they're meeting that expectation. And what does it look like? Which then also ties into our academic piece of what are our goals for each and every day. And one of our goals within classrooms are social goals. What does it mean to be a productive, collaborative group member? So you can achieve those academic goals as well. Would I want our behavior to be better? Yes. And we're not going to stop until we do get it better. But we have, speaking of safety earlier, we have lights that are sensed if kids are in the hallway. And it's like pick and save freezer section. And it's great when the lights are off because kids are where they're supposed to be in the hallway because no one's out and about. It's not every day, but I think you have a feel when you walk through what kids are doing and where they need to be. And if they're not where they need to be, it's a simple reminder of what to do and what does that expectation look like. Mr. Wood?
Thank you, Mr. Bennett, for coming and presenting this. Couple of questions around that Gallup survey from a higher level. Do we have access, or does Gallup provide, like, the results for these questions at different levels, say nationally, or state by state, or, urban school district versus rural, X number of students, 1,000 or more students? Is that data available to us to kind of compare and contrast our results versus national, state trends, or trends around schools our size or located in geographic area like ours, et cetera?
We have not done it from a school lens comparatively to a larger scale along that way.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because we're going to come back to this one question being a KPI, right, that we're measuring our success around. And that I always feel like it's it's important to be cautious around one single data point, right, that isn't in the context of, well, what do we know about how other districts like ours answer these questions? How do we compare? Is this truly low compared to other districts? Obviously, we would want a district where we would have a much higher percentage of our students saying that they believe people respect other students. At the same time, and I'm glad that I heard there's some discussion around, does this one question really tell the story around that respect piece, or are there other things we can glean from this data that may help us get a better picture of that? I just think to back when I was in middle school, right? I mean, such a challenging time for kids of that age, right? And I don't know, like, what your school's number was around that KPI as opposed to what the district number was, but I have to believe, that age group, there are a lot of kids who feel very, you alluded to it, do I fit in here? How do I fit in with others? They may see things as being disrespectful, which is really more a product of just kind of how kids learn to start interacting with each other as they reach, adolescence and so forth. So I don't know if you have any thoughts. This a little bit of a speech, I guess. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I'd be curious to know whether, in your opinion, that is a metric that in and of itself really tells the story that I think probably the district and the board were looking to get to when they said we're going to put a KPI around that question from that survey.
I think that's why you're looking at all of the questions collectively, because as you said too, if a student understands what does respect mean, and what does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like on Monday compared to Tuesday? So I think looking at the entirety of the survey to be able to build plans and action steps around, which we can then get tighter on some individual things when it comes down to question by question. If we would look at simply one question, we're not getting the whole picture of a very complex student. So thinking about, we've talked in our building a lot about teacher efficacy and in the student efficacy about belief and learning and what does that look like. And when you come to a school where you're respected, safe, you perform better, no matter where that comes from. So being able to look at it in a larger picture, and for our building being responsive of, we're not doing too bad with the adult piece in kids' respect and trust with adults, which is a huge lever. A bigger lever now for an 11, 12, 13-year-old is the peer sitting next to him. And now how can we raise that lever to continually raise the results.
And even with that, I think to your question, Les Paul students had 82% agree that I'm respected by other students. You know, so some of the questions,
But I agree, but so that's a different question than the observation of, do you feel other students are respected here, right? Which does beg the question, how can you have a higher percentage of people, or of kids, who feel they are respected than them saying, I don't think others are respected, right? That's an interesting juxtaposition, and it kind of goes to that, what you were saying, we need to look at it, I think, a lot more broadly and holistically through the questions. Because that one data point in and of itself doesn't tell us everything about that respect piece among students, I don't think.
and I think this is really a little snapshot of kind of what we had a conversation around as an admin team around this, that it's not just, yes, that's the KPI, but it's not just about that one question, but I think this is really kudos to Mr. Bennett's team and all of our schools' team for using the data as far as a continuous improvement process, you know, to really ensure that we are doing some strategic things to improve, whether it's one question, a cluster of questions, all three areas. So I hear you, and I think it's kind of the same conversation.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, Rob, I would agree with you. The best way to take a temperature of the school is at 90 minutes at lunch. Because that is unrehearsed time, and you can see how the students interact with each other, which is the key to how the school runs at that level, for sure. Anything else for Mr. Bennett? Excellent report. Thank you very much for taking the time.
I do have to acknowledge that Mr. Bennett was going to come tomorrow. Totally my mistake. I told him the wrong date. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you, Mr. Bennett. We were all queued up for tomorrow, and this morning we were on the phone, and he said, I'll see you tonight. I said, that sounds great. Thank you. So he's done a great job with the team and
Yep.
using the data, so I'm excited and just thankful that he was able to share tonight, so thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Alrighty, that concludes our discussion and information items. Next up is other business. Do you have any recommendations for future meetings? Anyone? If anything pops up, email myself or Mrs. Ginnerman. And we don't have anything other as needed, correct? No? Okay, well, that concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you very much for taking the time.